Welcome to the C-Suite podcast with me, Russell Goldsmith. I'm here at MPE Berlin, Europe's largest merchant payments conference, where we're producing the show in partnership with Ecommpay, a global acquirer, payment gateway and orchestrator that offers fully customizable payment solutions to its clients. I'm going to be interviewing a number of the speakers and attendees from the event, and I really hope you enjoy the show. So I'm joined by Moshe Winegarten, the Chief Revenue Officer of Ecommpay. Moshe, first off, thank you so much for hosting us on your booth here at MPE. This is actually the first time that we've partnered with Ecommpay on the podcast, so I thought maybe we could start with you just giving us a quick intro to the business.
Sure. So Ecommpay have been around, coming up to 13 years now. We're a full-stack gateway acquirer processor, regulated in the UK, in Europe, with offices in 4 or 5 countries, about just under 500 colleagues across those offices. So we've been around a while, we're at scale. I think what makes us a little unique in this space is we've bootstrapped. So all this time we've grown organically, allowing us to build a really stable tech stack. And it allows us to be very agile within this space. So we continuously adding and developing to the platform. The platform itself is, I like to describe it as the Apple of payments. So we're full stack, one ecosystem, but where we differ to some of the other great new players within the payment space is that we remain modular. Clients can plug in and use gateway or other services from us, and we're also continuously building within the stack. So what we're seeing in the market now is new services or solutions layering on top of PSPs, like subscription platforms, open banking, orchestration. And what we've done at Ecommpay is, whilst being a full stack PSP, we've built orchestration within the platform. We've been in open banking for about 4 years now and built that within, again within the platform, and same subscription billing, and we'll continue to do that.
Great, thanks for that intro. Now, you're taking part in a session today about people in payments. Can you give us a kind of flavour of what's going to be discussed there?
Sure. It's a topic I'm quite passionate about. I think I've worked at a number of really great institutions in payments with really, really great tech and great platforms. And one of the things I've seen over time is, however great your tech is, the people in the business can really make or break it, right? Whether it's in selling to clients, really knowing their business, understanding them, or servicing them, or developing the best products. So how do we cultivate the best people, the best culture, and the best payments expertise? And that will differ depending on the team, whether it's a product person, whether it's an engineer, whether it's a salesperson, etc. So it's something, again, over time within the industry I've seen, and I think it's really important for anyone in this space to think about how do we do that best.
Okay. Now, what we've got here, it'd be great to get your perspective on a few of the wider industry issues.
Sure.
The first one being, what do you see as being the biggest challenge for e-commerce and payments industry, let's say over the past 12 months?
Depends on the space or sector within payments.
Yeah.
So, it's quite broad. But kind of generally speaking, the economic climate has been challenging, right? It's challenging for consumers, as we all know, as individuals. So spend is, restricted or kind of weighted more to essential items, which has then put strain on merchants and businesses. And so their spend or ability to spend and prioritize development on their payments infrastructure is slightly more limited than it used to be, which is challenging, right? Because the market is getting more and more complex, from different fraud solutions needing to be implemented, different payment methods, etc. And so, merchants are kind of stuck with more demand and just kind of a tough climate in that space. And we've seen that even onto payment providers. Within open banking, within orchestration, we've seen, and BNPL, we've seen kind of those some providers close their doors this year, which has been tough. And then if you go more sector specific, I think that some of the regulations, I think this year it's been a little bit more noticeable in open banking. So the new APP fraud, we've had providers who've come to us who have been told they're liable or not liable, and helping them navigate that has been something we've been working on with new prospective clients.
What about biggest opportunities?
Biggest opportunity in payments, I still think open banking has a long way to go. So there's been some great growth in that space, but I think we're going to continue to see more VRPs, so variable recurring payments. We've heard a bit of noise about that in the UK and that being pushed and mandated. I'm not sure it will come as quickly as people hope, but it's it's definitely something that's going to come in there. But I think generally, we're continuing to see globalization, and so clients looking to support their customers all over the world. So the need to add more payment methods globally, and then also locally. One-click payments, optimizing the checkout. That's always required. That's always a big thing. And we've recently implemented click-to-pay. I think we're kind of the second acquirer in Europe to do that. So it's lots of opportunities out there.
Great. And so to finish off then, what's the most surprising thing you've seen or learnt about in the industry, whether that's over the last few months or maybe even here at MPE?
Well, I think it's when I started my career, when I came into payments and growing up in the UK, payments kind of who bought things, like cards work. What was really surprising to me as you come into the industry is realizing how fragmented not payments are, but different countries, there different people on their views on spend and how they treat credit, on the different payment methods. The payment methods in France to Belgium or Switzerland, where it's half an hour you cross the border and the payment method changes, right? We work with US companies, and I think for them it's still mind blowing. Come to Europe, it's just so different each market. And then once you go beyond Europe, you see in Asia and Latin America, you continue to see that. So I think really recognizing that each country is unique and each consumer is unique, how they want to pay and what works for them, and customizing for that. So that's quite surprising.
Well, listen, best of luck with your session later today. But for now, Moshe Winegarten, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So I'm joined by Riccardo Argenta, the Global Payment Senior Lead Manager at Back Market. Riccardo, thanks so much for taking the time to chat. Shall we start with a quick intro to Back Market?
Sounds good. First of all, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Great opportunity. Back Market, well, it's a French marketplace founded 10 years ago. We are focusing on refurbished electronics, verified refurbished electronics. We operate in 18 countries now. Our main mission is making sure consumers are aware that there is a choice between new and refurbished, and that refurbished is as good as new. We are a B Corp. We take a lot of pride in that. And business is doing well. Very good.
Good. So as you've been expanding into those different markets, what's been the biggest challenge that you've faced?
For what concerns Europe, it's quite easy, I would say. Euro currency, European passport, you can operate easily pretty much everywhere. When we are looking at other regions like Australia, Japan, even the US, the biggest challenge for us has been trying to identify the right partner, which is a good penetration in the market and is able to deliver the right balance between performances and costs, because payment ultimately is a pretty expensive item in the FP&A of a company.
So on that note, when you're choosing your payment providers, it would be good to understand that decision-making process, but also, what were the key deciding factors?
We have been moving away from one single PSP, payment service provider, to an orchestration model where we have multiple PSPs. So when it goes down to the choice, there's sort of a double layer, I would say. On one side, we try to work with local partners, those that sort of match back market needs in terms of cost and performances ultimately. And then we are looking at what consumer wants. We are looking at payment providers that are able to offer local payment methods that are adopted by the consumers, that consumers are familiar with. So we try to find those who have been in the market long enough to be known and that are successful on those markets.
Okay. Now, back to MPE. You're pretty busy here. There's a couple of sessions you're involved in.
Yeah.
So the first one is you led a roundtable which was on navigating payment strategies for global marketplaces. So what would be good to know is what were the key points raised during that session?
Yeah, it was a good discussion. It was a discussion among merchants. The key points there were how to evolve from one single PSP to a multi-PSP strategy on one side, and then we sort of look at license, electronic money license, and what the pros and cons are there. There are merchants who sort of took the step to become a EMI licensed agents. So we're trying to look at what are the benefits, the pros and cons of those setups.
Can you share any of those then?
I mean, it's just something that I think any scale up at some point looks at.
Yeah.
It becomes an opportunity, but it brings a lot of sort of paying as well. You need to make sure that your setup is right and you're responding to compliance questions all the time. So it becomes also a burden down the line, but the benefits are there for sure.
Sure. And then, as I said, not satisfied with one session, you're speaking on a session shortly, and that's about payment orchestration as the key to efficiency. So what can you give us some kind of spoilers? What can we expect to hear on that?
Yeah, right. So again, it's going to be mostly an open discussion on the benefits of orchestrating, sharing the example of back market. What did it bring to back market? A couple of notes there. We reduced costs by 30% by generating sort of competition between our PSPs. We managed to be more local when it goes down to certain alternative payment methods. So I think the discussion is going to evolve around those items.
And so looking ahead, any trends or innovations that you're keeping your eye on in the industry?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I've been sort of looking at these days. There was an open talk yesterday, very interesting, on pay by link, for example. There's a couple of verticals where we see this fitting within our needs. And then I think stablecoins as well. I'm not an expert, far from being an expert there. But it seems like there's an interesting space where innovation is happening at a rapid pace. And we try to be sort of ahead of what happens in the payment industry, even though we are a marketplace and it's not the core business there. But we try to be innovative there as well. So that's something I'm certainly looking at.
Okay. And so final question, just to wrap up, what's the biggest challenge that you're going to be facing this year?
We have been focusing on pay-in quite a bunch, so payments coming into the platform. We are in a pretty good space, I would say, in terms of that balance between cost and performances. Now we want to focus on payout as well. So we have 3,000 merchants. We want to make sure we are paying them as fast as possible in the most appropriate way.
That's great. Riccardo, Argenta, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, it's actually a welcome back to the podcast to Andre Moeller, the payments manager at Volkswagen Group Charging, who last joined us at FinTech Talents back in 2023 in London. So good to have you back on the show, Andre.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure for me to be again in the podcast.
Yeah, and I have to say congratulations on the best shirt of the podcast here at MPE. I don't think this is going to be beaten.
Thanks.
Now,
I do my best.
Now, you're pretty busy here at the conference. What I was keen to understand is that there's one of the big, I guess, areas that you focus on is recurring payments, variable recurring payments. Right. So what's the challenges that you face with that at Volkswagen Group Charging?
How much time do we have in the podcast? Very simple explanation in that. So the charging business is based on MIT business. So MIT capturing, merchant initiate capture, or merchant initiate transaction, which is the opposite of the CIT, the customer initiate transaction. So CIT is mostly setting up in the e-commerce sector and, on the POS, where the merchant is asking first, is it allowed for my customer to pay this money, this amount of money for this basket or whatever. In the MIT business, it's just the way around. So the customer is doing something and the customer is away when we send our capture. So in our environment, it's very risky to do this like this one, because we operate the biggest charging network in Europe. We cover 700,000 charging points across Europe, where we don't own all of them. We just own a little small part of this, and they are in our network. And we have to wait that the CPO who owns this charging stations let us know that our customer was charged. So in that case, the customer is on the highway back and on the way where he would like to go. So if something goes wrong, the capture failed, the customer is away. So in that case, that's the main risk in this setup. We have to transfer the customer from MIT to CIT. That will be a long way. We know this, but now we did a couple of things in the last 3 years to bring our business to the right track and to cover the risk or to lower down the risk.
Well, I was going to ask, can you share some of the steps that you're taking to make that process more seamless and less time consuming?
One big step I can told you, because also our competitors knows this if they or realize this if they're on board. In the past, we had this big risk that we only capture once a month. So we give the opportunity to the customer that he, in the worst case, he on board on March 1st and we send the first capture on April 1st. So if you are a fraudster, you have 30 days to charge your car and make a tremendous financial damage on our side. That was a big step we did and we bring live in last November, where we said, we call it continuous invoicing internally. What really means is that the customer is charging and we send the capture. If the capture failed, we bring the customer in the dunning process. And that was a really big step for us and brings us lower down the risk of fraud, because we see in a shorter time that somebody needs to cheat us. And that was a real tremendous. It needs 2 years of preparing and bring the right things on the way that we can bring this live last year.
Okay. So looking ahead then, what trends or innovations in payment technology are you keeping an eye on? And also, how do you see them impacting your relationship with payment service providers?
There are different things which comes up. Where I take a deeper look, or which I keep always in mind, is that we have to take a look, or we have to be on track for open banking stuff. I'm also open banking account to account is for me similar. Plus also, I'm very, very exciting. Is it the real word? Is it the right word? Yeah, exciting about Vero. What's coming up there in that case? Because we need some European solution. We need some European solution with lower fees. In the best case, to may have an opportunity opposite to credit cards and something like that, to lower down there also the risk and also the stuff of the US. We don't know what Trump is doing as tomorrow or in 2 days, and if he wakes up on one morning and he say, yeah, we shut down the schemes for Europe, could be happen. I don't know. So in that case, we need something in particular in Europe to cover this. So there I see a big opportunity for us as merchants in Europe. In an answer to the second part of your question, we stay always in very good relation, or it's our target to stay in good relationships with our payment partners and with the payment partners outside in the world. One thing was doing by the Volkswagen Group last year, that they set up a payment orchestration, which we can use in the future. So we have to find out what could be the right way for us. We have 2 good partners at the moment in place, where we stay really in the daily communication to lower down risk, to set up better quality in capturing, to react on reason or error codes or something like that. So very close partnerships, that's very important for us, that's very important for me, that's part of the daily business. And in that case, it's always important to have the good relationship with these guys.
Well, a few things to keep you busy there, but for now, Andre Moeller, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
So I've stepped away from Ecommpay's booth to chat with Zahava Dalin Kaptzan, who is Product Marketing Manager at Riskified. Zahava, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. Should we start with a quick introduction to the company?
Sure. Riskified has been a pioneer in using machine learning and merchant network data to help merchants approve orders that they might otherwise decline out of fear of risk. And, you know, when Asaf Feldman and Idogal started Riskified back in 2013, they had a clear mission in mind, which was to solve this challenge of e-commerce fraud. And they created a solution that really does that. It was preventing fraud by helping merchants approve more good orders safely. But over time, it's morphed into much more than that. And today, it's an AI-powered platform that addresses a whole spectrum of risk. So from emerging fraud threats all the way through omni-channel abuse, all with the goal of helping merchants optimize their revenue. And I mean, when you think of how e-commerce has developed over the years, back in 2010, it was a $400 billion industry. Today, it's a $6.5 trillion industry. So e-commerce has grown exponentially, but fraud has grown as well. It's more sophisticated than ever, and more sophisticated fraud solutions are more readily available than ever on the dark web. So it's not just the master fraudsters now committing fraud. It's kind of everyday people with illegal tendencies who are going to the dark web. They're purchasing stolen credit card information. They're using bots. So we need to consistently adapt our machine learning models, improve our fraud detection capabilities, and stay one step ahead of the curve. And today we're doing that for over 50 publicly traded companies. In the last year alone, we've guaranteed over $140 billion worth of GMV. And we're really tapping into our superpower, which is our very large merchant network, to help solve the problems that are facing merchants and the new ones as they crop up.
Now, coming back to MPE, you are running a workshop here, and it's going to be on optimizing conversion and outsmarting risk with AI-enabled checkouts. So what I was kind of keen to understand is how merchants balance the need to reduce fraud with ensuring, a seamless checkout experience.
Well, e-commerce has gone into the direction of being very customer-centric. But the problem is when you're trying to make seamless customer experiences, a lot of times people translate that into, let's give frictionless checkout. And the problem is frictionless checkout is like rolling out the red carpet for fraudsters, right? You're making it too easy for them. But if you go in the opposite direction and you apply friction very bluntly, you're going to experience drop-off. It's a really bad experience. I mean, imagine if you're trying to check out somewhere and the first time they don't know you don't know the merchant doesn't know you. So when you're asked for your credit card details and it includes a CVV, no problem. If you're putting in your phone details for the first time and you're asked to validate that via SMS, it makes sense. But when you're trying to check out from the same website for the second time, the third time, the fourth time, and you keep facing all these forms of friction, it's a big problem. And one day your phone's going to be in another room and you don't want to bother getting it and you're just not going to finish checkout. And I think we've all kind of experienced that ourselves as a consumer. So merchants face this issue of putting up too many blockers to keep out fraud, and that creates a bad customer experience. And I think the key word is one that you said, which is balance. They need a way to balance it. And there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all answer. If you're looking at your financial details on a financial website, you don't mind that additional verification. But if you're trying to buy something quickly that you buy all the time, you want it to be quick and easy. So merchants need to be able to be very nuanced and to customize their approach, both according to their industry and its risk profiles and its risk factors, but also based on the individual orders, because you want to take your really good customers, the ones who are using the same device they always use, they're checking out from their home or from work where they always check out. You want to be able to give them that frictionless, seamless experience. You also want to be able to recognize fraud really quickly and block it. And then when necessary, you want to be able to use friction, but in a very smart and nuanced and most of all, a very selective way. And I think that's the direction that the market is going to go in.
Just interested to know, given you're always battling against the fraudsters, when you're developing your solutions, do you ever bring ex-fraudsters in to talk to them?
That is a good question. Actually, recently we were at a conference and we brought somebody on stage to talk about exactly these points.
Right.
And I'm not going to go into the details of who's who.
No.
But we have let's just say that we have a very, very strong R&D team. I think 1 in 3 people who work at Riskified is in R&D.
Right.
And we invest heavily in it. And we're doing this in order to keep up with all the changes in fraud because it's constantly getting more sophisticated. and more sophisticated forms of fraud are more readily available on the dark web than ever.
Yeah.
So these are definitely keeping track of things happening on the dark web and how fraudsters are going in, and at all different touch points across the customer journey have to be looked at, and fraud needs to be mitigated and risk needs to be mitigated across all of them.
Okay. Well, talking of developing products and solutions, it kind of all links nicely because you recently launched your AI-powered adaptive checkout. So I want to hear more about that. AI is a topic that, as you can imagine, we cover regularly on this podcast. Tell us a little bit more about how adaptive checkout works and the benefit it brings to merchants.
Sure. I'm really excited to talk about adaptive checkout. It's a great product. It's essentially fraud prevention and conversion optimization in one. So this is going to help merchants approve more good orders safely. And it's something we started thinking about years ago because we saw that as merchants were bringing up their approval rates, they still had these legitimate customers who were starting the checkout process, but not making it all the way through. And some of that is because of drop-off that we mentioned with friction. And some of it is because traditional solutions were not addressing false declines. False declines are a massive financial problem for merchants. It's hundreds of billions of dollars globally each year. And a lot of solutions didn't have the nuance to address orders that are statistically too risky to approve, but they don't meet the patterns of blatant fraud. So we saw that merchants really needed a more sophisticated solution. And then there's also addressing the issue of false declines by the issuer. You know, merchants can't rely on banks to always make the right call because too often they don't. 15% of orders on average are declined at authorization, and most of those are actually good orders. And if you or I try to check out somewhere and we're declined, we don't know if it's by the merchant or by the bank, and we don't care, you know? And 40% of people who experience false declines are probably going to go to a competitor. You know, imagine you're trying to buy tickets last minute for a concert and you get declined. You're not going to bother trying to order them again from the same merchant. You're going to immediately go to another website before they sell out. So what adaptive checkout does is it solves this by both first analyzing each and every order, looking at its risk profile and saying, is this a good order? And then it then adapts that order's checkout flow based on its risk profile with surgical precision. So if the order is good, it's going to go straight through to authorization. And if it's blatant fraud, we can screen it out prior to authorization. So already you have people who are going to have these frictionless checkout flows for your best customers, and you're going to improve your authorization rates because you're blocking out fraud. And then we can apply verification selectively only where and when needed in order to maximize conversion while minimizing risk of fraud.
That sounds excellent. Now, as well as increasing use of AI, and obviously in your own solutions as well, but what other trends are you seeing in the industry in general?
So besides the fact that merchants really haven't found a solution for false declines yet, and that's why we're addressing it with adaptive checkout, one thing we noticed is fraud is touching more and more touch points across the customer journey. So you have account takeovers happening at login, and you have people using stolen credit card information at checkout. And you have lots of policy abuse. You have people who are claiming the item wasn't received. You have people who basically double tap fraud because they buy things fraudulently and then they try to return the things that they bought fraudulently and steal from the merchant twice. So policy abuse, returns abuse, these are growing areas of fraud that we are addressing.
Well, listen, good luck with your adaptive checkout. And of course, good luck with your session that you're running here at MPE. But for now, Zahava, Dalin, Kaptzan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Russell.
So joining me now is Ruslan Volynets, the CFO of Booknet. Ruslan, shall we start by you giving us an introduction to Booknet and also just tell us what you're trying to achieve as a business?
Yeah, first of all, thanks a lot for having me here. I'm
Pleasure.
really excited to be part of MPE this year. So I'm from Booknet. We are a self-publishing online literary platform, and we try to connect readers and authors over the world. We have to build our own ecosystem where we can make an expansion of literature to different markets and to connect, let's say, authors from Argentina with readers from Japan, and that could work perfectly. So our idea that we not just like a marketplace, we are like a ecosystem that help to grow and to make people more happiness with reading the books.
How many markets are you operating in at the moment then?
Currently, our core market is in Latin America, and we almost have full coverage where, of course, we have consumers in Europe, in Ukraine, and our next point is to think about expansion to new markets like in Polish market, in German market.
Okay, so let's pick up on that. When you're looking to expand into new markets, what are the biggest challenges you face when you're doing that?
I would say that the biggest challenge that we have, it's not even with EU market, but it is currently what we have with Latin America because of alternative payment methods, which are very diverse in Latin America. So, for instance, if you work in Mexico, you need to be taking attention that cash-based payment methods like OXXO could be quite popular there, and a lot of consumers even don't have use widely credit cards. So that's why you need to be focused very deep on such kind of methods. And if you speak about South Asia, it could be wallets. So you also, if you want to be good position where like you need to take this into account.
Okay, so and outside of expanding into new markets then, when it comes to those challenges, what's the biggest challenge in payments that you think your business is going to face this year?
I would say that we started from initial base like startup, so it means like we have one of the biggest challenges to create our own payment infrastructure. And when you are pretty small, it's quite difficult to get like enterprise solutions like you have from Adyen or from Checkout. So in this stage, you need to find your providers, payment service providers, on from local countries where you expect to make an expansion. And I would say that it works pretty good because let's help you to be cost effective, to be flexible, and to have good coverage on local markets.
Final question, and then it's something that obviously we talk about a lot on the podcast, and that's AI. So I'd be keen to understand how you're working with AI to enhance your platform and also the business as a whole.
Yeah, of course, for the last 2 years, AI is like the most popular topic, and we also try to use this tool effective to our business. So first of all, we expect that AI would help us with good expansion to other markets due to translation, real-time translation of our e-books to different languages. After that, of course, it's about cost reduction because of using AI. It's much more cost-effective compared like for traditional translation. We also can use it in customer support, so a lot of areas of implementation. And as the third point, using AI, we want to be more close between like intermediaries, authors and readers. Why? Because using AI in real time we can translate our discussion, conversation, feedback between authors and readers, and that would help to make the story more interesting and amazing to read.
That's interesting, yeah. A different use of it as well, yeah, very good. Ruslan, Volynets, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
So we've just come away from Ecommpay's booth to catch up with Faheem Bakshi, VP Payments at Kinguin. Faheem, thank you so much for taking some time to chat. Should we start with a quick intro to Kinguin?
Sure. Kinguin is a gaming marketplace where we connect users and customers and buyers and sellers. And of course, we sell digital products, games, softwares, prepaids, globally expanded into different regions, a different market. And yeah, that's pretty it.
That's you. Excellent. Now, you're speaking on a session called The Evolution of a Shop. So it'd be great to just understand, get a little sneak preview about the key points that you're going to be making there.
Sure. Well, it comes with a name, how the evolution of the shop started. Like, for example, 20 years ago or 10 years ago, how the shops were, how the checkout flow was, how the customer was making also payments like card, wallet, or now maybe instant payment method. So, of course, we talk about the soft POS, we talk about network tokens, how the tokens are actually now beneficial for the customers, and many other aspects of how consumers are actually benefiting from the checkout options.
Now, one of the questions we're asking a number of the merchants that we're speaking to here is about the decision-making process when you're actually choosing between different payment options. I was wondering if you can kind of talk us or walk us through that whole process, and also understanding what some of the decision factors are that you're making there.
Well, it's a very tough question, but of course we have this on daily life because now a lot of payments providers are giving us really good features. But when it comes to decision, it's also about the authorization rate, acceptance rate, what kind of different options they're using, what kind of like fees we will be getting, because in the end, we need to give a competitive price in the market as well. So one of the most important aspect is the technology, the checkout, how the user experience are, what kind of regulations we can actually emphasize on the customers. One of the most important for me as a payments guy is to ensure how the shops, the different shops have different kind of checkout. Like, for example, competition has a better checkout, so we have a better checkout. How is our authorization rate, the fraud, and those kind of compliance related queries.
Okay. And in terms of looking at other trends and innovations in payment technology, anything that you're keeping your eye on in particular, and looking at how it could impact your business?
The seamless payment is one of the most important thing for us, because the customers, they would like to go to the checkout and make a payment, and obviously if they have any issues, they would never come back to the platform again. So seamless payment, the technology is important, and also their bank, their credit card should be accepted by our platform. That's the most important.
Any other topics that you're focusing on?
One of the most important aspects for us is instant payments.
Okay.
So right now the customers are actually making payments. They're trying to, have an innovative idea of buying some kind of games. But again, for us, the most important is that the instant payments should be, faster than it has been before. We are facing issues that when customers are making payment, we are not getting the funds. So that's an unpaid order. So I think 9th of January, which is very important, is quite clear that banks are, trying to emphasize instant payments in Europe, just like, for example, PickPix in Brazil or Blick in Poland. That is something we are looking forward, so that every country, for example, in Germany, there's Klarna, we would like to have instant payment be more specific. Instant settlements, that's also very important.
Okay, and so in terms of, and this might be a difficult one to pick one, but what's the single biggest challenge in payments your business is facing this year?
The biggest challenge is to choose from the best ones, because we've got so many options, but we need to know which one to prioritize, especially when it comes to the user journey, the user flow, what kind of payments we need to have. As Kinguin has expanded globally, we need to know what's the best payments in Brazil or in India or in Thailand. So we need to ensure that what payments customers will like. So it's not up to us, but it's also about the customers. So it's also about the customer centricity.
Okay, interesting stuff. Well, really appreciate all those answers. But for now, Faheem, Bakshi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Russell, for having me here.
So joining me now is Matteo Gamba, the Head of Product, Global Payments and Fraud at Wayfair. Matteo, should we start with a quick intro to the business?
Wayfair is a large enterprise merchant selling furniture, houseware, basically everything that our customers are looking to make their homes the place that they love. And we operate in a few different markets, US, UK, Canada, and Ireland. And primarily online, but also with a growing physical stores presence. And definitely have a strong interest in payments and fraud. As a business, we've been building the capabilities and the team, and we're happy to be here with you guys.
Now, you've been on a session here at MPE. It was about tokenization. Talk us through the main talking points there.
I also just came out of a roundtable about tokenization.
Oh, right, okay.
Hot topic. No, I think it's something that most of the merchants are dealing with in different forms and formats, either thinking about their relationship with their acquirers, with their PSPs, like credit card data are tokenized in some way, in a secure and safe manner, also to deal with PCI compliance. So really, like the starting point is you kind of have to do tokenization. If you reach a certain level of PCI compliance, it's part of the business. The other conversation is more about the performance that tokens can help you to drive, either in terms of top line or bottom line optimization. Ultimately, tokenization is something that enables multi-PSP setup. That is something that helps you to drive both improvements in terms of uptime, in terms of auth rate performance, and in terms of cost, giving you that extra flexibility to work with multiple providers and not to be locked in with a single one. And then the third layer is more about network tokens. We've been talking about network tokens for years. We're going to keep talking about network tokens for years. There is a mandate from the car networks for the issuers to move to network tokens, and also for merchants to use them. There are penalties and incentives for using or not using network tokens. Ultimately, that's where the industry is going, but it's going to take some time before we get to full adoption. So merchants still need a strategy where they leverage PANs and PCI compliance tokens and network tokens alike.
Okay, what challenges have you encountered in integrating a payment service provider with your existing e-commerce platform?
So every merchant is going to be a little bit different. For us, has been a transformation journey, starting from adding multiple providers, handling tokenization. Some of the challenges have been primarily driven by the fact that you have a legacy stack. You need to move away from that. And that requires, first of all, convincement of your leadership group, of your executives. Someone needs to be on board with the idea that it's a good idea to invest in that. And then there's actually the technical implementation. You need to move away from system, you need to decouple, you need to build net new capabilities before being able to integrate. And so what you see traditionally is that the first integration maybe takes you a longer period of time, and then you have learnings and you have better systems, and so further integrations are faster and cheaper to do.
Looking ahead, what trends or innovations, particularly in payment technology, are you actually, focusing on, keeping an eye on at the moment?
Yeah, I think what I'm really looking forward is better ways to handle identity in a digital way, because ultimately having a good understanding of who the customer is, who the user is unlocking better performance. You can reduce friction, you can improve auth rate, and you can reduce fraud. So having clearer, more structure, more standardized digital identity frameworks is going to be an enabler for this performance improvement. And you can see it with mandates like click to pay from the car networks, that type of functionality that reduces friction, provision tokens, and makes the journey a bit smoother. But also like the journey that Apple Pay and Google Pay have been doing over the years. It's really reducing friction from a customer perspective while adding security and improving performance for merchants.
Final question for you. We've been asking most of our merchants this question. What's the biggest challenge in payments that's facing you this year?
This year. I think an interesting one is the continuous changes on the car networks side. A lot of chatter around the upcoming changes that Visa is going to apply to the chargeback and dispute programs, monitoring programs that are changing and they're being unified. There is a new program coming out. There's a lot of confusion and lack of clarity on the merchant side, and we are weeks away from the changes, and nobody really knows what is going to happen and the cost that is going to come with it.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, and thank you for joining us, Matteo, Gamba. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Well, that's it from MPE Berlin. Thanks once again to all my guests who took the time to chat to me, and of course to our partners at Ecommpay for hosting us on their booth. Don't forget, if you have enjoyed the show, please do give us a positive rating and review on your usual podcast app. And if you want to get in touch with us, you can use the contact form at csuitepodcast.com, and you can also find me, Russell Goldsmith, on LinkedIn. But for now, thanks for listening and goodbye.